Question of the day: what's your favorite solo gaming experience? Is it something where you're playing a puzzle, essentially, trying to best the computer, as it were, or is it more of an adventure that you're playing through a story? What would you prefer when you're playing a solo gaming experience? Which brings us, obviously, to today's topic of Marvel Champions, the new Fantasy Flight living card game set in the Marvel universe. No, not the cinematic universe, more the comic book universe. So today we're going to take a look at this brand new LCG. It's one of the co-op LCGs, which when I say that, I always play them solo. I just enjoy them better. Arkham Horror especially played solo. The Lord of the Rings game. Some things really help if you have someone else to play it with, but we're going to look today at how this one plays, how it stacks up against the other solo cooperative genre of living card games that Fantasy Flight has, how it treats the Marvel properties, what it does, what it doesn't do, if this one's for you, and if you should jump in and start getting these, because there is a big interesting difference in this one that is a pro and a con, possibly at the same time. Let's take a look right now. Marvel, I always forget the name, I don't know why. Champions, the card game, Fantasy Flight right now. So let's take a look at Marvel Champions. I keep calling it Contest Champions. Pretty sure that's a mobile game, but Champions, the card game for Fantasy Flight. Obviously, learn to play, rules reference guide, always handy with Fantasy Flight games. You do get these counters, large ones for the supervillains, small ones for your characters. They give you enough to play this with, I believe, 4 players to start with. So everything scales based on players, so that's smart. It's one of those things where if you have this many players, you do this many times, right? So there are a couple of characters, main characters to start with. In this core box, you have Spider-Man, as well as Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. So there's that. You can choose either one of these to play as, right? And there are quite a few villains in here that you can play against. You can play against perhaps Rhino or Yanrog or certain ones, you know, obviously that are specific to these heroes that come in it, but the starter one that it recommends playing is against Rhino. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your threat deck, and again, there is a lot of customization later that can happen, but when you're setting up the basic game, it's best if you just kind of follow the preferred starter deck that it tells you. So you're going to take your main villain cards out, as well as the deck that is associated with that villain, and they'll have cards at the bottom that tell you what cards you need for that villain deck. And then the same thing with the hero. There are certain ones that tell you, hey, what cards you need if you're going to play this deck. But you also get characters like Iron Man that you can play as. They have their alter ego side on the back, as well as their hero side here. Basic powers that they have on the hero side are different than the alter ego side. And then one other thing to notice, the hand size is very different based on what you end your turn in. So you have to, at the end of your turn, you have to draw down to your hand size. Iron Man has 1 card for his hand size, whereas Tony Stark has 6. So depending on which side you end your turn on, depends on how big your hand's going to be for that turn. But the She-Hulk, Iron Man, and then the other ones I mentioned, I believe Black Panther as well. But you're going to set out your scheme. You read this one, it's mostly story, kind of tells you what's up, also how to set it up for different difficulties. Then you flip it over to B. Boom, you're trying to stop him from breaking into the bank. Basically, if there's 7 threat points on here, you lose. And the way that works is at the beginning of your turn, or the beginning of his turn, I should say, the villain's turn, you're going to add threat to this card based on player number. So it is kind of difficult. Again, it's also 7 per player. This is 1 per player gets added. So it scales nicely like that. On your turn, one other thing though, you're going to take Rhino 1, Rhino 2, and you're going to set them up like this. Rhino 1 has 14 points, Rhino 2 has 15 points. You're going to have to do quite a lot of damage to this guy to beat him to win this mission. What you're going to do on your turn is you're going to get your cards, your deck of cards that you would have as Spider-Man, and you would take 6 of those, because you're starting with 6 no matter what, because you're always starting your alter ego side. You take these special cards that are in here with the orange back. Those are always bad guy type cards. Some of them are a special villain that goes in there for Spider-Man's deck, so you get the Vulture as well as the Shadows of the Past thing. It shuffles into the threat deck, which would be Rhino's deck, and when those come out, they obviously take effect. So Spider-Man, you're going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. On your turn, you can do different things with these cards. They all have a cost in the top left. That's the cost to play those cards. In the bottom left, you'll notice these resource symbols, right? Boom, 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 boom. If it doesn't show you a specific type of resource you have to play up here, any of these resources will do in order to play one of these cards. So on your turn, let's just go through the phases real quick. You can play cards, you can trigger or request actions, you can use basic powers, those are the ones on your hero cards. You can change your form only once per turn, and then it kind of shows you what to do at the end. So if I wanted to play this, for instance, the swinging web kick, it does 8 damage to the enemy, and the enemy doesn't really have a way to defend unless they have a toughness status card, but that's a different story. You would need to discard up to 3 resources, not up to, you'd have to discard 3 resources out of your hand. So maybe I'll just go 1, 2, 3, boom, I'm going to get rid of these 3 cards. That's 3 different resources to get me to the level here. This is an event, it just happens, boom, does 8 damage to the villain. This goes in the discard pile. Now, some of them are allies, like Nick Fury. You play this ally down, he stays with you. Now, some of them don't say this, but Nick Fury, if he's still in play at the end of your turn, discard him, because you know he's cagey like that, how he dips in and out, right? But Nick Fury offers 2 thwart and 2 attack. Your attack is how you do damage to the villain. The thwart is how you pull threat off of the scheme. So if you think it's easy to get that threat on there, it is, but you can at least pull it off fairly easily on your turn, which is why you want to get allies out there. Allies you can only have 3 of, by the way. But other things, you know, events, upgrades, these are things that you would add to your character. Interrupts are going to happen when they trigger. It'll show you on there. Basically, you're just going to go back and forth between the enemy phase and your phase. On the enemy phase, if you were in your alter ego, first of all, they're going to add threat. But if you're in your alter ego form, they're going to add more threat to the scheme. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw a boost card, so it'd be 1 off the threat deck. Ignore everything on the card except those symbols in the bottom right. That's +2 to, if it's a scheme, it's going to add 2 plus what he already adds as the Rhino, which it shows you down there. Shows you somewhere here. Maybe it's on this one. Yeah, it's on here. So it's going to be 3 added this turn, because 1, if you're playing a 1-player game, plus the 2 it adds for the boost card. If you're in your hero form, not the alter ego form, he's going to attack you. And it's basically the same thing. It's going to add this boost to his attack level. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to do 4 damage to Spider-Man. If you are ready and not exhausted, you can exhaust Spider-Man, which you're going to be ready anyway, but you can exhaust Spider-Man or whoever has a defense value to take that defense action, which is going to subtract that damage from the damage coming at you. Well, the downside is you only re-exhaust or ready your character at the end of your turn. So if you exhaust him to defend, you will not have access to his powers during your turn. So that's it. That's the push and pull for the entire game. You're going to go until either the threat of the scheme is limited, hits its limit, or you defeat the enemy. Boom. That's it. Quick and dirty. Fighting back and forth. Straightforward stuff. So that's it. Basic, pretty straightforward. You're fighting and trying to stop a supervillain from doing something villainy, whatever. Pretty straightforward. It's not, you're not chucking dice. You're not reaching into a threat bag to pull out threat. You're not setting up for a campaign and, oh, remember you did this to do this later. None of that. You're playing an individual scenario against an individual boss. It's much more like Legendary in a sense than Arkham Horror, obviously. So let's break down the differences really quick between the LCGs that Arkham Horror, Lord of the Rings, those two are pretty similar, and this one. First of all, story-wise, there's no story here. You're playing basically straightforward. The small story you get from the scheme, it's not a big, deep narrative, but it's not meant to. Imagine this as a one-off issue of a comic book where someone swings in, oh my gosh, the Rhino's robbing a bank. Oh man, Killmonger's trying to get these weapons out. It's a one-off. Each one of these that you play is a one-off issue of a comic featuring, your favorite heroes, and you get to stop the villain and play as it really quick. Now, what that does do is it makes the action faster, tighter, and you're not worried about, oh, do I need to do this for later? You're just playing for the moment. You're fighting to win, right? What it doesn't do, though, is it harms the feeling of anything really mattering long term. What I mean is it feels more of like I got a few minutes to kill. Let me try Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, or let me try Captain America versus Killmonger, So it's that feeling of almost mashing up your favorite heroes versus your favorite villains and throwing them out there, which is an interesting concept, but you don't get any of the narrative, any of the story, any of the long-lasting effects that you get from Arkham Horror, the card game. So just know that ahead of time. However, if that's your bag, if you enjoy more just fighting, quick, dirty combat, then this one's for you. Which brings us to the second point of comparison, combat. Now, you're not pulling from a bag, you're not chucking dice, you are are pretty much doing deterministic combat, which the enemies get a slight boost from the flipping over the boost card, and yours is straightforward. You have certain actions and certain allies who will do certain amount of damage. That is nice, but I do like the fact that you get to just do straight damage to bad guys. It's not like, well, you check against this level against this to make sure, and then whatever the difference is. I like it because you are a superhero, so it makes sense that you are pretty much hitting a pretty hard punch or whacking a wallop. You know, the web swing with Spider-Man is really cool. In my mind, I'm just playing Marvel vs. Capcom the whole time, basically. But it's nice to see that you're doing a good amount of damage as well. I like that it's not just tied to combat. You do have to remove schemes and threats and all that sort of stuff. You have to remove that stuff, and you have to kind of play when those other side quests and side schemes come in. You have to play around that and try to avoid all those sort of things. So it's nice that there's that variety of the game, even though it's distilled into this quick moment of this villain versus this hero or these heroes. You know what I mean? So in that sense, it's nice. The combat is very nice because it's smooth. It's not devastating when an enemy attacks you like in some of the other games. You're like, well, I'm just done, right? So you can actually withstand it. I like the fact that you have the alter ego and the hero, and you can switch sides depending on how you want to play. I think the mechanics for all that is very smooth. It's very tight. It's very quick. The turns go very quick, and I like that. It's not something that drags on. Even if you're comboing and building things, you're not dragging and building and taking forever to do your turn, which is always a good thing. So art is nice. It's not quite, circa 2006 level Marvel. It's not, I'm trying to think of some great artists. It's not, oh my gosh, Jason Fabok, Ethan Van Sciver. It's not that kind of realistic art either from the DC side or the Marvel side. It's more kind of just an in-between art, something you would see in the books about Marvel Comics. So it's not a bad thing. It's very straightforward, it's smooth, but there are some really great images in there, but don't expect you're getting pages from artists. You're not getting Jim Lee art in this, even though all three of these people are DC guys. But the art is nice. The aesthetics of the game are nice, though. I do like the way the cards are laid out. I like that there are multiple different things on each card that are used for different things. So the boost for the enemy cards, just the way the cards are laid out, you can see what type of card it is. I like that. I like how you use them, how you use the resources for paying for them, and if you use a certain type of resource, you sometimes get a benefit, or you have to use a certain type of resource other times. I like that. I like that the variety is not take these tokens, it's all on your card. So you have a gamble. Do you go, well, do I want to get rid of this card to use it for its resources, or do I want to use it for its power? So I do like that feeling. I like the feeling that you get that nice gamble effect of what am I going to do with my cards, right? So that is basically the whole game in a nutshell, though. It is quick, it is dirty, in a sense that you're getting in and out very quick. There's no lasting effects to it. You're picking your favorite heroes and putting them against your favorite villains. What this does, though, for the living card game model, as opposed to something like Lord of the Rings or Arkham Horror, you're not buying this one episodically, right? They release Captain America, you go, America. They release Captain America, you go, man, I want that. They release Kamala Khan, you go, man, I want that. Big hands and all, right? So you pick whoever you want, as opposed to, man, I got to get this every month. I'm going to get on for a couple months and I'm going to drop off. I think that's a smart decision, because it means that the expansions you want are the ones you're going to get, as opposed to, well, I have to get all of the Dunwich horror cycle. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a smart idea of picking heroes to play out that, and you'll get villains and things associated with it. So you can jump in and take the hero that you just bought, put him against the villains that you like to play the most. So this one falls more into that puzzle genre of, well, I hope I get the cards I need so I can best this villain. So that is Marvel Champions, the living card game from Fantasy Flight. I look forward to seeing more from this, seeing more cool, very well-known characters, as well as more obscure characters too, both in the allies and the main heroes deck, so as well as the villains. So I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter for more reviews, Instagram, all that sort of stuff, all of what we do here on the Dice Tower at Dice Tower Brian. And until next time, we'll see you, true believers. That's what Stanley always said.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.